welcome to the program. I'm your host, Cheryl Noble. My guest today is Polly Halstead, author of Primal Cuisine, Cooking for the Paleo Diet, now in its second edition. Tonight we're going to learn about the paleo diet and why it's so important for our health. And a little bit later in the program, we're going to have a cooking demonstration from one of the recipes in the cookbook. So let's get started with Polly and paleo. Hi, Polly.
Hi, Cheryl.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Well, let's cut to the chase. Tell us what paleo diet is.
Okay, paleo refers to the Paleolithic times. During that time of our evolutionary history, it was the end of the Ice Age, and we started out being mostly foragers as humans, but then we learned to hunt. We developed projectile weapons, and we began to hunt in earnest. And scientists now believe that it was that diet, that evolutionary diet, which consisted of wild meat and wild fish primarily, which was very high in omega-3 fatty acids, that contributed to our large brains and gave us the capacity for speech.
Oh, so the paleo refers to that ancestor, that a time
Yes.
of how they ate and the type of food that they ate.
Yes.
And then, so how does that relate to modern times then?
Okay, well, first of all, we're not talking about a diet here
Right.
like in losing weight or something like that. So what we are talking about here is the evolutionary way of eating, which sustained us during that long evolutionary time frame. And we were very healthy as humans. We would not be here today if that way of eating had not been successful. I mean, some people say, oh, we were vegetarians or we were vegans or this or that. No, we now know from scientific evidence, bone analysis, large piles of bones from the animals we ate, and of course piles of shells and everything, that's what we were eating. There's no doubt about that.
How did you get involved in this, or what's your background? And
Okay, well, I started out in life having a lot of health issues that sort of plagued me. In my early teens, I had acne, I had terrible migraine headaches, I became bulimic. Later on in life, I had autoimmune disorders, and a lot of depression. My mother had schizophrenia, a mental illness, and I was always worried that I was going to get the mental illness, or it was going to skip a generation and my children would have the mental illness or whatever. So I was always really interested in the brain and genetics. So I studied that as I went along. But most of my life I just didn't feel that well. And I was living in Hood River, Oregon in 2009, and I came across the book Primal Body, Primal Mind, written by Nora Gedgaudas. She's a neurofeedback specialist and nutritionist, and she lives in Oregon, in Portland. So the book really impressed me. I really got the idea that it's our diet that contributes to our health, or if we're not eating very appropriately, it contributes to our demise. But at the end of her book, she's talking about this genetic disorder, pyroluria, which is a vitamin B6 and zinc deficiency. It's a genetic disorder. And she listed the symptoms, about 30 symptoms, and I had about 20 of those symptoms. And it said that it was one of the contributors of schizophrenia. Oh. Wow, well that really got my attention, and I called her right up. I said, my mother had schizophrenia, I have all these symptoms, I'd really like to come and see you.